Hey, Kobold's back with another Should You Run It, where I give a brief explanation of an adventure or module for tabletop roleplaying to help you decide if you should run it for your group. Just a quick warning, there are a few minor spoilers within this video, but I would be okay showing it to my players, so I hope that helps you determine what I mean by minor spoilers. So, batten the hatches and bring down the sails, because we're heading to Saltmarsh. As we sail, let's get our sea legs by learning a little about Saltmarsh. Saltmarsh is described as a basic fishing village, quietly tucked away in the southern coast of the Keelan Kingdom. At one time, they were a formidable force, specializing in cavalry knights. Their campaigns quickly helped them claim more and more land, growing east and west, but always heading north. Each success granting the crown more power and wealth, but always drawing their attention more and more north. Because of this, the southern regions became wild, inviting those who seek its power to come and take it. With the focus of expanding the north, the south was left with little defense and order. Eventually, the pirates grew strong enough to take control of some of the southern region. The pirates led by a few captains, creating a small confederacy called the Hold of the Sea Princes. Saltmarsh is one of the towns most devastated by the pirate raids. Its goods and people were taken, being used to further the growing pirate nation. This left a hatred in Saltmarsh for all things pirate. In time, Keelan's victories to the north gave way to a sting of defeats in which its neighbors pushed the kingdom back to its original boundaries. With the world closing in, King Scotty looked to the south and saw unchecked banditry and a rising pirate nation. The crown struck treaties with its former foes to the north, raised a navy, and dealt a sharp check to the ambitions of the Sea Princes. But the conflict is by no means over. King Scotty had decreed that the pirates must be put down, the sea lane secured, and trade cultivated. If Keeland cannot prosper as a military force, it must grow mightier as a center of trade. In its recent development, bands of dwarves, bearing the decree from the king himself, have arrived and began to excavate the hills and sea cliffs near the town, looking for precious metals. If their work bears fruit as expected, the mine stands to become a major factor in the village. Naturally, not all of Saltmarsh's residents feel the same way about the recent developments in and around their community, which is a key issue that affects their lives and livelihood. Although the recent changes stand to bring a new prosperity to the area, many locals don't want to see their homes change. At the same time, agents of the secretive and mysterious Scarlet Brotherhood work to thwart Keelan's ambitions while advancing their own. There are three main factions that interweave in this adventure: the Traditionalists, who seek to keep the old ways alive; the Loyalists, following the Crown's decrees and desires for change and growth; and last we have the Scarlet Brotherhood, a secret faction wanting to destroy the Keelan Kingdom. The Traditionalist faction is an alliance of the prominent fishing families and merchants in the town, along with the workers who rely on those industries to make a living. The Traditionalists remember terrible times during the Sea Prince's raids and have no desire to see the Crown's ambitions lead to open war. Also, the smugglers who operate in the area tend to be Traditionalists. Most pose as merchants and rely on their local contacts to move goods through the region without interference from town guards or royal agents. Smuggling has long been an easy way to make money in Saltmarsh, and locals generally look the other way, seeing it as a victimless crime. The Traditionalists would like to see the dwarves' mining efforts fail, and interest for the north wane, so that Saltmarsh's dependability on fishing can thrive, and the smugglers in the area are left alone. They resent the intrusion of outsiders seeking to transform Saltmarsh and undoubtedly drain power from the fishing families. The Loyalists consist of newcomers who arrive from the northern reaches of Keeland, loyal to King Scotty. They feel that the town should focus on becoming a useful asset to the crown and value the good of the kingdom over the good of the region. The town guard, the dwarves, and the local farmers are generally loyalists. The loyalists care about security. They want to keep Keelan's enemies at bay while ensuring law and order. They see smuggling as a key problem, as it enriches the Sea Princes at the cost of the royal treasury and the efforts of honest merchants. Above all else, the members of the faction put their faith in law. They exert influence through the town guard, though they remain within their legal authority. At their best, the Loyalists want to grow Saltmarsh into a trading hub with a higher standard of living and improved security. If the Sea Princes are held back in check and the sea lanes cleared of its threats, Saltmarsh can then grow to become the envy of the world. The Scarlet Brotherhood claims that the bloodline of its followers trace back to an ancient empire, the Sul Imperium, and its goal is to restore the old noble houses to their former glory. As scions of a realm that once enjoyed unmatched arcane power and a vast domain, its members see themselves as superior to all other folk and are the only ones fit to rule. For decades, this group has been concocting a conspiracy to spread fear, chaos, and uncertainty across the land. When the time is right, the Brotherhood will strike to seize the reins and kingdoms all across the world. Already its assassins have slain those who might oppose its sinister plan. In almost every court in the land, from the most remote backwater barony to the imperial courts of world powers, the Brotherhood's agents have quietly garnered positions of influence. The book is broken up into 7 micro-adventures, each strung together to create a single overarching story. The first is The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. 4 miles east of Saltmarsh, just inland of the old coast road, stands a haunted house. Until 20 years ago, it had been a residence of an aged alchemist with a sinister reputation. Even then, locals avoided the house because of its owner's mysterious activities. Now, 2 decades after the unexplained disappearance of its occupant, the house has taken on an even greater air of evil and mystery. The next chapter is called Danger at Dunwater, and ties heavily with the first chapter, so I don't want to spoil too much, but I think the image tells a lot. The next adventure is Salvage Operation. When a ship missing for years is spotted adrift at sea, its one-time owner sees a final chance to recover its lost fortune. But what the former owner doesn't know is that the ship has a new master. Our next chapter is the Isle of the Abbey. The local Mariners Guild would like to claim a small, strategically located island and build a lighthouse there. But so far, its representatives have not been able to land safely on the island. Every attempt to come ashore has been met with a horde of undead. The guild posts a lucrative contract in nearby coastal communities, seeking adventurers willing to secure the island and its burned-out abbey. The next adventure is called The Final Enemy, and this one builds upon the previous adventures, The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, and The Danger at Dunwater. The next adventure is Tamarat's Fate. 5 years ago, a hermitage devoted to the contemplation of nature was established in an abandoned island fortress. Once a site of a beacon meant to warn those against invasion from the sea, the folk of the hermitage opened the island to people of all faiths, promising a place for those who seek solitude and peace. But that peace has now been shattered, and the characters must determine what force of evil has slain the residents of Firewatch Island, almost to the last, and how to prevent an even greater tragedy to come. Our last adventure is The Styes. A series of mysterious murders shakes a downtrodden folk in the Styes, a decaying port fallen on hard times and slowly being reclaimed by the sea. Even though the so-called Lantern Ghost Killer is caught and executed, some in the district believe that the true killer is still out there. It's left to the adventurers to follow the clues the local militia ignore, exposing corruption and activities of a dark cult, and an alien presence whose evil lurks beneath it all. And of course, you can't talk about Ghost of Saltmarsh without talking about ships. So there's a whole chapter on ships, talking about how to use officers and crews, different types of ships, how to manage them in combat, different encounters that you can run, like random encounters. I think this chapter overall is laid out pretty good. If you want a deeper dive into the 3 factions, know more about Saltmarsh and its residences, or hear my take and suggestions on the micro-adventures, please check out my other videos. They should show up on the cards above or at the end of the video, or if I still need to make them, they'll be there in the coming weeks. Overall, I think this is a pretty good book. I think that some of the adventures are not tied together the best. I think a couple of them are just shoot in there because they need you to raise to the next level so that you can actually go to the next part that is part of the main story. But that's a real minor criticism. I definitely recommend getting this book and running this adventure. Until next time, bye bye!